Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a very special movie reaction. So, for those of you who are new, hi, I'm EDJ, and I react to historical videos, a lot of historical battles and events from other YouTubers like Epic History and Kings and Generals. And I also do historical movies. That's usually where I limit myself to historical fiction, historical movies and shows. Like that's kind of what I limit myself to on this channel. And right now we're doing where we're learning about the English Civil War by kings and generals and covering that. And so I thought it would be kind of appropriate to do this movie reaction to a movie that I've mentioned a few times on and off. It's the 1970 film Cromwell, and overall, yeah, this is, I think, one of the few, or at least probably the most famous movie depiction of the English Civil War. And, I've seen scenes of it. I know that it stars Alec Guinness, aka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I've seen some scenes like him entering Parliament and whatnot, but I have not sat down and watched the entire movie. I fortunately have found it online, and yeah, I'm gonna be checking it out and really covering it, and we'll just watch it together. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm not sure what the consensus of this film are, if it's like good or not. I didn't really do much research, but I am really looking forward to covering it. So before I get started, I just want to say if you want to help support my channel in any way, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help my small but humble channel grow, and I appreciate it. If you enjoy my content or my thoughts or anything. So with that said, without any further ado, let's get to it, right? Let's watch Cromwell, 1970.
Oliver!
There he is. That was a really good opening. Um, I had to cut out all the music and just skip to this part because copyright and stuff. But I kind of like the that opening. It's really like quiet and almost like somber, like even the landscape and whatnot. And then this loud music will blast when Cromwell comes onto the screen. This like righteous overtone, that's probably not the right way to use the word, but this like righteous like bellow with the chorus, and then it kind of dims down into like a more solemn, like um very solemn chorus. I don't know, that's just really interesting. I think it really captures kind of like this like eeriness, like I don't know, it's kind of haunting. And I mean that in a good way. So I really kind of like that opening. I feel like it really set the tone for the man Cromwell, and at least through like the visual and the music, because obviously I'm pretty sure that this movie, since it's called Cromwell, is going to mainly be focused on Cromwell, and he's kind of going to be the main character.
I recall you often spoke out strongly in Parliament for the rights and privileges of the common people.
That was a long time ago, Mr. Arton. I had a vision then. A great nation. Prosperous, God-fearing, good laws, strong, respected throughout the world. That was the England I dreamed of.
Perhaps I've been misinformed, sir.
Mm.
I thought as a Puritan you would see it as your God-given duty to do the Lord's work in this land, regardless of sacrifice. Then why are you leaving?
I am leaving because this country crawls with greed and corruption. It is governed by adventurers and profiteers who think more of their pockets than their principles. I am leaving, sir, because we have a king who taxes the rich beyond its means and steals the land from the poor to maintain his lavish court and his Catholic wife. And when Parliament objected against these injustices, he closed his Parliament down. and our man dare not speak his mind for fear of imprisonment.
Alright, that's interesting. Other than what we covered about the Civil War series and Cromwell's, rise, and then what kind of happens after Charles is gone, I'm not really fully aware of his earlier life pre-Civil War, so that's interesting. I'm not sure if he ever actually wanted to leave, England for America, or if that's just a creation of the movie. Um, but if so, like, that's interesting. I feel like that's an interesting character motive that you're kind of getting the idea already off the bat a lot about Cromwell, and I feel like the movie's doing a really good job of establishing the man, someone who's very gung-ho about his beliefs, very rigid, um solemn, but like what's the word? Very solemn, dutiful, devout, and kind of a bit, I guess jaded might be the word I'll use. I'm not sure it's the right word I want to capture, but I kind of like that you get all that off the bat with him. You know where he stands, you know what he feels, and you feel the religious um theme, because obviously religion does play a big part, especially considering that the English Civil War takes place around the time of the 30 Years' War, which began as this Protestantism versus Catholicism, conflict, and that definitely does translate into the English Civil War, as Catholicism and Protestantism kind of do clash, so I kind of do like that too. And you're getting the idea of how people are starting to perceive Charles, right?
A war against whom, Mr. Martin?
Against the king, sir.
Hmm.
The king? You mean a civil war?
Then it is treasonable talk, and I will not have it in my house.
I marked the time when you were much against the king. I'm not afeard to say so.
In truth, there is much in this king that does offend me, yet withal I would not take up arms against him, and I would oppose any move to do so.
That is the funniest thing ever, considering what we know happens later. That this whole no treason, heck no, it's the funniest thing ever, and it's kind of cool that you're gonna see like Cromwell kind of like, oh no, I'm not gonna talk about civil wars and fighting the king. That's insane. Um, and then I assume we're gonna see the disillusionment grow even further, because it's already there, so we're probably gonna see it grow further as the movie goes on, to the point he's like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's fight the king, as he's kind of being pushed more into that radical um mindset.
The rights to pasture belong to the common people. By what authority, Lord Manchester, do you take that away?
By the authority of His Majesty's commissioners, granting me and my friends full rights to this land for the purpose of improvement.
Such a contract cannot be legal.
Yeah, the whole land stuff with Charles was another interesting one when we covered it in the Kings and Generals part of of how the English Civil War started. And again, Charles definitely, especially if I feel like when we look through a modern lens, we could definitely say a lot of his ideas, a lot of his policies. Yeah, you could even just say they were tyrannical in like a lot of aspects, definitely. And there are people who have debated definitely Charles being a tyrant, or not a good king, and whatnot. And you can definitely see how, like, this idea of it is kind of being portrayed in the movie off the bat with this stuff. Like, Charles definitely wanted absolute power, and he was kind of like, again, he hadn't called parliament for like what, like a many years, and he basically wanted to be like an absolute monarch. He didn't want parliament around. He didn't want to answer and if they upset him, he could, just disband them at a whim. So definitely you could see how that tension started, right? Where he's like, oh, he's a tyrant, and it's kind of hard to argue at some points, definitely. And that, Charles wasn't really definitely the best king, definitely not. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm wondering if the movie is gonna portray Cromwell heroically completely or not. Um, I mean, so far you get the idea, like, yeah, he's kind of disillusioned and kind of stepping up against this what he views as tyranny, this unjustness. And, so far looking just the first few minutes, you get the idea that, he might be the reluctant hero, right? Or something like that. Even though Cromwell's actual legacy is much more complex in real life. As, a lot of people are like, no, he was just a villain at the end. Especially the end with some of the things he did. And I have seen some few people actually still think he was, not the villain. I don't know. It seems like Cromwell's definitely a figure that warrants debate, and I'm interested in seeing what route the movie takes. If they're going to go with the idea that he's a hero throughout, or they're gonna portray him as a villain, or maybe a bit both. Maybe like a fallen hero, Anakin Skywalker style. I don't know. I think that's gonna be very interesting since this movie's focused on him specifically. And it's a good idea. Like between him and Charles are kind of the two most important figures of this era, the ones that usually most people talk about. So, um, you know, it it's good that I think they chose him to follow instead of Charles. Because again, those two men are very interesting in their own way.
Spirit of thy grace, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Is the Church of England not a Protestant church? Would the king turn the house of God into a Roman temple?
Oh my god, yeah, he saw that, that golden cross, and he lost his crap. Again, religion is another thing that ties, uh, not just with Cromwell, but definitely the era, like I mentioned, with Protestantism and Catholicism. Um, like it's easy to forget, but yeah, religion was something so intrinsically tied just to this era, the wars from the 30 Years War to now this. Um, it's really interesting, and it makes sense because I feel like the world definitely religion was a lot more dominant in society back then, at least compared to nowadays, where I feel like religion's definitely starting to not as prevalent among people's minds and stuff. Um, like back then, like the medieval era, and even to this point, again, like religion was really important to just common people, Not to say it isn't around and it isn't important to people. I just feel like, society back then definitely paid more heed. At least here in America, a lot of people can do without religion. Like, So that's kind of like interesting.
Has this king forgotten the Reformation? Mr. Cromwell, away with it. Popish, idolaters!
Like a reasonable crash out. I'm joking, but again, I I do appreciate that they're showing the um Cromwell's zeal. Definitely, you get the impression that he's a man of great zeal, and he's operating in what he thinks as righteous anger. And obviously, it's a matter of perspective, whether you're Catholic or Protestant. Obviously, depending on what you are, you'll see his actions. It's like, oh yes or no, you know. That's the thing with Christianity. There's so many denominations. It's um, it, everyone will disagree on everything. So, but like in his point of view of Protestantism, he's operating by righteous anger and great zeal. So again, you're starting to see the disillusionment with the land stuff, seizing and out this. Like, you're starting to see what's pushing Cromwell to be like, okay, I hate the king. I mean, he already disliked the king, but now he's like, okay, maybe I can fight against him. And there's the... there's the man himself, Alec Guinness.
It is not fitting that a future King of England should make his devotions in a Catholic chapel. Your private beliefs are respected, but this is a Protestant country, and as head of both church and state, it is my God-given duty to see that it so remains.
That is really interesting. Again, this idea of, as I believe Catholicism and like some ideas from the Roman Catholic Church were starting to seep into England, definitely, which again seemed kind of majorly Protestant. Enough for people to be upset at the influence, as you see, of Catholicism coming in, right? And now Charles being like, oh yeah, we will respect that, but you can't like be practicing like that, Catholicism. And I think it was his wife, right, who was Catholic. I could be wrong about that, like portrayed here in the movie, and that's why some that played a part in why Catholicism was starting to have some wiggle room within you know a heavily Protestant society. So yeah, that's interesting.
The Earl of Strafford awaits your pleasure. My good lord...
Dude, everyone has immaculate drip. I just want to comment on the costumes. I kind of like them. Again, I'm not the most, I can't pretend that I'm like an expert on how people dressed, in the 17th century, but especially the higher ups, but, again, I'm like really liking the costumes. Everything's so like colorful and flamboyant. I'm like, dang, look at that drip. Like, if I, when I started this channel, I had this like idea. I was like, hey, how about whenever I cover like a historical like time period like in videos, I just like dress up. I was like, yeah, I'll dress up like a Macedonian soldier when we cover Alexander. I'll dress up like Napoleon when we cover Napoleon. But I realized, yeah, I can't spending a crap load of money on costumes. Probably wasn't gonna be a good investment, and it'd probably look weird at times, especially if I'm like, let's say covering China and I dress up like a Chinese emperor, but probably look weird and probably be weird at times. So I kind of scrapped that idea. But not gonna lie, kind of wish I could kind of get those costumes. Look at those immaculate costumes everyone's wearing. I don't know, looks cool, very flamboyant and cool.
Raise a second army.
I fear your majesty may find that easier said than done. There be many Englishmen, my lord Stafford, who would more readily draw swords against the king.
To put an effective army in the field against the Scots will cost almost £1 million. The crown does not have £1 million. Then I will summon Parliament and instruct them to provide money.
Parliament? King of England? Go cap in hand to the common people like a beggar.
Dang. Again, like, Charles definitely wanted absolute power, and that was a big thing with his conflict with Parliament. Straight up, like, at points just not summoning them for years, and obviously kind of rigging it to be in his favor whenever he did interact with it. And, I kind of like this approach, definitely. That those who are like loyal to the king and near him are like, oh, to summon Parliament shows weakness. You know what I mean? Makes you look like a beggar. You should be above that. People should just be lining up already to be on your side because you are the king, the absolute monarch. What was it? The divine right to rule or whatever. So I kind of like that, and I think that kind of might be feeding into Charles's ego too. Like, yeah, I am the king, you know, I should just not have to even do this. People should just be lining up to be on my side already, but obviously the political situation is not that simple.
I say, take the money. You, my lord, are absolved before God and before man from any such action.
Do you mean, sir, that I should declare war on my own people?
Aye! Before they declare war on you.
Oh my goodness.
Well, Sir Edward?
Your Majesty, I believe the House will grant a loan to the Crown, but only on certain conditions.
What are these conditions, Sir Edward?
In essence, sire, that the Crown relinquishes all authority over Parliament.
So it has come to this, my lord, that you now bargain for your crown.
What would you have me do? Arrest every man who opposes me? Hang them?
Would you rather make a gift of the crown of England to the rabble in the street?
Dang. I kind of like that. Charles's wife is just so gun-ho about, like, he seems to be surrounded by, you know, people who keep reinforcing the idea that, you know, he's the absolute monarch, he should just be gun-ho, he should double down and continue, even, like, you know, putting down more rebellion. He shouldn't have to answer to anyone, he's above everyone. And again, I feel like with the real Charles, you know, King Charles, a big problem with him is that he what's the word I'm looking for? He didn't compromise, and that's the biggest fault I think he had. He wasn't the kind of guy to find compromise with people, and he wanted it his way, he did things his way, and, you know, he didn't really want to compromise, especially with Parliament in a lot of areas, and I think that's probably a bad thing to do when you're, but then again, when you're operating by the idea that you're above everyone, and that you should have absolute power, and everyone should just be submitting to you, I could see why, you know, with that mindset, though the reality was much more complex than that, you know? So, I don't know. I find that interesting that the movie seems to be showing that belief is reinforced by those who surround him.
The Earl of Strafford has this day put his hand to a warrant for the arrest and impeachment of myself and 4 other honorable members of this House upon a charge of high treason. The fault lies with those very people from whom the king has sought counsel. I therefore move that this House demands the arrest and impeachment of the Earl of Strafford upon a charge of high treason against the people of this nation.
Dang.
I think my Lord Strafford's condition will soon be far happier than mine.
Dang, holy crap.
Your Majesty, you see here the leaders of all parties of the House, and though we be divided on many issues, we are of one accord. We are deeply anxious for a settlement of the differences between us.
Parliament is persuaded that without the right to govern this nation by the will of the people, and with God's guidance, we be not a parliament at all.
In short, Mr. Pym, you are asking me to relinquish my sovereign power over Parliament.
It does amount to that, Your Majesty.
Gentlemen, if you would reduce me to a figurehead, a puppet king, manipulated by Parliament, how then would I serve my country? What manner of king would I be?
This is a very interesting discussion. After Stratton's death, that, you know, and now this whole, discussion, and what Parliament really wants is to not feel useless anymore, because, quite frankly, under Charles, yeah, he just, like, disbanded them, I think, at points, you know, and just kind of, they were basically the puppets of the king, you know? And you know, the only reason he's even like talking to them is because he wants to go wage war against the Scottish, you know? So like, you know, it's kind of this idea that, yeah, can you like relinquish your sovereign power, or rather as well let us be like actually important and matter in and not just be like useless. And I don't know, I find that very interesting.
I am persuaded, Your Majesty, that England must move forward to a more enlightened form of government, based upon a true representation of a free people.
Wow.
Such an institution is known as democracy. Being ordinary, they would prefer to be asked and not told.
Even as we sit here, the Scots rebels are invading this land. I beg you, therefore, let us bury our differences.
Yeah, that was interesting. I kind of like that topic change right there. The idea of democracy being mentioned and then Charles immediately being like, oh yeah, so the Scottish are invading, we should really get to it. And again, I think it's just because Cromwell's definitely in his logic, you know. I mean, look, I live in America, you know, like, ideally we do say we practice, you know, democracy and, you know, people and whatnot. Um, and, you know, obviously, like, if you're a believer in democracy and whatnot, you might just hear what Cromwell is saying and be like, yeah, I agree. You know, the average folk, you know, like me or and whatnot, should have a right to say like what we want and how we want things to be in our government, you know.
By my God, I would as soon take up arms against Rome than against the Scots.
Would you have me declare war on the entire Catholic world, Mr. Cromwell?
It is your duty to defend our church, sir.
Okay, and now you're starting to see, again, Cromwell's zeal start to come out, and you know, that whole dislike for Catholicism now starting to seep in, which again, depending on your own religious beliefs or not, might be like, you know, but yeah.
There will be no peace in Ireland until the Catholic Church is crushed.
And again, I'm pretty sure the Queen is Catholic, right? And that's where some of the influence I mentioned earlier. I'm pretty sure she's Catholic. I could be wrong. Please, my sincerest apologies, good sirs, if I am wrong. But, um, but yeah, I kind of like that because, you know, she's kind of like the instigator, right? She's practicing Catholicism. She's trying, you know, enforcing the king to be much more harsh, much more authoritative. And then, you know, you see like Cromwell, it's kind of the exact opposite of that. I mean, he's kind of the other side of the coin, right? Like that, but with Protestantism, like we ought to be, you know, fighting Catholicism. So, you know, definitely, it's funny because it's all under the banner of Christianity, right? Um, and the teachings of Jesus and the Bible, and yet, you know, it's all, there's so many denominations with so many different beliefs, and you know, depending on what your beliefs are. For instance, I'm a Pentecostal, I'm an apostolic. I believe in, you know, the oneness of God and that Jesus is God, you know, and not really I'm not a follower of like the Trinity. And some people would look at me and say, you're not a true Christian. And some people have said that, you know, I can't consider you a Christian because of that. And then, you know, and obviously there are so many different denominations with so many different branches with sometimes with radically different ideas and perspectives, and some of us would jump and be like, you're not true, like, and then, you know, and I think religion, even more than politics, and I know that's, I mean, I don't know, they're kind of similar, but in terms of just how it causes people to be heated with one another and fight with one another. And Cromwell is like, I won't have a civil war. I won't fight a civil war. Yet, in a way, he already is with, I guess, the banner of Christianity in a sense that we're all supposed to, like, it all stems, from Christ, and yet the way people have taken it with so many different denominations and practices, some of us are, other branches of Christianity are so alien to us that, in a way we're more willing to fight and dislike each other because of that. I don't know. It's kind of like its own civil war Christianity sometimes. You know. I don't know. I find that interesting. Yeah, I lack eloquence. I'm probably not getting my what I'm trying to say fully out well, but I hope someone kind of gets what I'm getting at here.
You have the power still, and with God's help, the strength to use that power. I married you as a king and as a man. I beseech you, do not disappoint me in either aspect.
Dang. Yeah. I'm not sure how much of an influence the actual wife of Charles actually had. Like I said, I know like movies, you do exaggerate some things, and you definitely add, even historically accurate movies or historical films kind of leave room for some fictional aspects, some wrong aspects. I'm not sure if she was actually this influential over him and really was pushing him. But if so, then yeah, it's interesting because obviously those who you surround yourself with will have the biggest influence on you, like friends or whatnot, and obviously who you choose to marry. So if accurate, then yeah, she definitely pushed him into a more um less compromising aspect, which probably didn't help in the long run because I feel like definitely, you know, like I said, a big aspect of Charles is just the guy didn't compromise, and he wouldn't compromise in a lot of things with Parliament. So, if true that his wife and those around him were pushing him, probably reinforced that already big belief, right? And made him dig his head in the sand even more than it already was, perhaps.
The king is coming with a warrant for our arrest. We must leave at once.
And again, you're starting to see that the king, Charles is doubling down. Like, definitely, the way the movie's definitely showing it is that he's being pushed by his wife. Almost kind of like, again, I'm not sure if the real queen was actually this influential in pushing Charles this way, or if this is like a dramatic choice from the movie, kind of to make her like a sort of Lady Macbeth figure, you get me? But at least in the narrative of the movie, you definitely see that Charles, um, to show compromise, or the idea of it is to show weakness, and that, obviously, I think when we think of leadership, we think, yeah, a leader should be open-minded, a leader should be compromising, because life is full of compromises. Very seldomly does everyone get 100% what they want. When you're working with other people, you need to, at points, you can't have everything. They can't have everything. That's where the idea of compromise comes in, and you have to find what's best for both of you, even though both parties won't get everything they want. And obviously, if Charles had been more compromising and more down to earth in that sense, maybe the war could have been avoided. Who knows? But again, with the queen showing that, to show compromise when you're the absolute monarch and the most powerful man in the world, in England, is to be weak, and you can't be weak. You have to double down. You have to show who's in charge, and I guess assert your dominance, as it were. And it's just building the tension, right? Because so far, like, definitely, like, the movies, the narrative, um is showing just Parliament wants to compromise. Parliament, at this point isn't full on rebellion. They're like, we just want this king, and we'll continue remaining loyal. But again, Charles is just like, no, there is no compromise. You do what I say or else, I have to say, I really want to praise Alec Guinness. Like I said, the only movie I've ever seen Alec Guinness star in is Star Wars. No, the original trilogy, and obviously he was spectacular as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but that's the only line I'm familiar with his work. And obviously even by then he was a veteran actor who's been in so many projects before then. So it's really cool to see that. And just see how great of an actor he is. He really has a great how do you say, presence. He has a very regal presence in this film, and very royal. Like, definitely looking at him, it's like, yeah, he's a king. He carries himself like a king, and like, I believe it. It's so immersive, um and that's, I think, what makes a great actor, when they immerse themselves so much, you just believe it. Like, yeah, this guy's a king, this guy's a Jedi Knight. Um, so again, like, he's owning it, and he's so likable, oddly enough, despite Charles definitely making a lot of bad decisions and making a lot of like things that I don't agree with, like that. I don't know, like, this portrayal is so likable, it's kind of hard not to like the guy still. Um, I guess that's just Alec Guinness being a great actor and just being that charismatic. So, definitely a lot of praise to the actor, and to Cromwell's actor, Richard Harris, who I think was Dumbledore, right? Or yeah, it was Dumbledore in the in the original few Harry Potter films. I could be wrong. Again, I apologize if I am. But Richard Harris, according to the titles, I think is Cromwell. So definitely unrecognizable to me because he's so much more younger. But I think he's doing a great job too of capturing that kind of like solemnness. Because I feel like if I had to use a word to describe Cromwell, especially his depiction in this film, it's solemn. Like, he's a very solemn fellow, very zealous, and kind of like no nonsense. Like a very, I don't know. I don't know what's the word, the correct adjective I'm trying to use, but I think you know what I'm getting at. And I don't know, I think he's doing a great job of that too. So great two leads to carry the film, since it is about Charles and Cromwell both, like two great actors to um you know center the film around.
I have here a warrant for the arrest of 5 members of this House: John Pym, Henry Ireton, John Hampden, Oliver Cromwell, and Sir Arthur Hazelrig, upon a charge of treason.
That face, he just, like, I'm not sure if that's like a look of respect, seeing Cromwell did not flee. And again, Cromwell just standing there definitely shows like he's not a fearful man, not a coward in that respect. So I don't know, I kind of really like that. Seems like that look kind of looked like it was somewhat out of respect, or at least like amusement, that he did not run away.
I further move that any such action against this house be considered a crime against the people and treason.
You will inform the members of this House that their presence is no longer required by the nation. This Parliament is, by my authority, terminated. Dissolved.
Dang, dude. Um, that's hard. Yeah. Obviously, I am aware that Charles, did actually at times just disband Parliament, which is just again, like wild, you know what I mean? Um Dang. He really just said, I am the government, you know? I am the House of Parliament.
By your action in this house today, you may have pushed this nation to the brink of civil war.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's basically it's happening. Cromwell's on the idea of civil war, huh? Okay, so we're getting into the war now.
Greetings, uncle. 'Tis a fair day for a fight. Where be the enemy?
My lords, I present my nephew, His Highness Prince Rupert, Count Palatine of the Rhine.
Oh wow.
My lords, I give
Oh
you...
yes, that's Rupert. Okay. So, yeah, I'll admit, Rupert was kind of the MVP of the royalist side. Like, he was yeah, I think, like, the best general working under Charles and, you know, achieved some great, victories for Charles, and, yeah, it was his nephew. So, again, I really liked, you know, Rupert when we were covering the Kings and Generals English Civil War series. And yeah, I think he was really cool. So it's cool to see him in the film, which would make sense. Like, it would be weird if he wasn't.
For I do swear by this sword that within a week we will have severed every round head from its shoulders.
Well said, Your Highness.
This is something I really like about older movies, is that older movies definitely had to be a lot more creative, especially in like battle scenes like this, because obviously nowadays we have CGI and computers and stuff and graphics, so it's definitely easy to make like 100 guys look like 1,000 through CGI and stuff. But back then, that wasn't really an option, so they just had to straight up assemble people and like use at several distances like cardboard stands to make it look like more people are there. I don't know, there's something so much more creative about older movies, especially when I watch like epic battle scenes like this, like, you know, or with like Waterloo. It's like really cool to see that, yeah, there was just that many people there, basically, you know, having to be an army. So I don't know, I always kind of like that aspect when we watch these older films. I find it impressive and just really, you know, cool.
Where the devil are we? Edge Hill, my lord, over there. Morning, Robert.
The Battle of Edge Hill. Alright, that's really, that's really cool.
Well, Essex, are you prepared?
We are. Shall we begin at 10?
I'll make it 9, my lord. I'm positively starved.
Then in God's name, let's to it.
It is agreed then, 9 o'clock. And by my faith which I have not, I swear that within the hour this field will be strewn with English dead.
If this be so, they will have been killed by Englishmen. For we have not seen fit to import foreign mercenaries into our ranks.
Dang.
I will mark you well for that insult, sir. Be on your guard.
I like how zesty Rupert is. Very flamboyant. I like that. Dang. Definitely liking the depiction of the cannon barrage. It's definitely very raw and brutal. So far I really like that. Yes. I'm really liking looking at the pikes. For those of you who don't know, the pike is my favorite weapon. It's my favorite, I don't know, what is it about pike warfare, from the Macedonian phalanx to the Swiss pikemen to the Spanish tercios. Yeah, the pike is just like my favorite weapon, and like I just think it looks so cool, pike formations, and obviously it was prominent in this era. So I don't know, I really like that you're seeing them stop the cavalry charges and stuff.
The sport begins! Tally ho!
Tally ho! You know, this looks fun. Not the actual war itself, because that's brutal and a lot of people died. I mean, like, filming this seems fun. I don't know, like, like, being a part, it's like, kind of like a big LARPing or reenactment kind of situation, you know? Like, I don't know, it seems like kind of cool, you know? I would have, like, this is something I would like to be a part of, like, a background extra, like, a big battle scene. It just looks like it'd be really fun to be a part of, like I said. Again, the filming of a movie like this, not actual war, that wouldn't be fun, you know. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, love the pikes. That looks really cool.
Sound general retreat. Sound general retreat.
Yeah, the Battle of Edge Hill is definitely like one of the big battles. In fact, maybe well, you know, definitely one of the more talked about battles of this war. And I really like the way they portrayed that. That was like really cool, you know. Again, this is like I'm very happy to have seen it. That was awesome.
It is my intention to return to Cambridge and raise an army of hand-picked men, the like of which this nation has never seen.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Is that what's a really big turning point in the war? Because the early stages of the war, definitely the royalist forces were the ones winning, but there came a point where you know, Cromwell and Parliament basically created a new standing army. The new model army, is that what it was called? I could be wrong, but point is, the moment they made this professional army, they started decisively winning against the royalists, and then this army just went on to dominate England. So I think that was kind of meant to show the beginning of that idea, that Cromwell is going to be raising a much grander army, you know, to really give the fight to Charles.
So, Cromwell comes with his army of 3,000 to our 7,000. God, we have him.
That's Barry. I like how Rupert just has his dog with him in this war. That's really cute. Okay, so this is supposed to be the Battle of Nadesbury, and obviously we kind of got through the training montage, and so Cromwell has his new model army, or at least his specifically trained men, and yeah, now we're gonna you know, be putting it to the test, as it were. Dang. Oh, cool. Rupert and Cromwell are battling. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wow, Rupert straight up murdered him there. That's really cool to see. I really love the battle scene so far. I feel like the cannons also have a certain oomph to them. Like, when the cannonballs hit and they strike people, I don't know, it just feels, like, powerful, as, like, I would imagine a cannon would, right? I don't know, I think they're really good. Oh my gosh. Oh, crap.
Your Majesty, may I suggest that we withdraw?
No.
My goodness. Yeah, so now you see the tide, right? The Battle of Edge Hill was depicting Charles's early victory, and now this Battle of Nadesbury, I know I'm not pronouncing it right, but, you know, depicting now how Cromwell's new training and stuff is, now superior. So the tide has shifted. So, I really like that. I'm not sure we're gonna get any more battle scenes, but I think that was a good showing, and both did really well.
Where's Oliver?
Oh, dang. Yeah, his son died. Yeah, definitely a bittersweet moment for Cromwell. Achieved a great victory, but lost his son. That was probably the first time in this movie we've seen Cromwell's hardened exterior break, right? That was great acting. Like, so far this movie, he's been very, like, you know, like, tough. Like, like, he has a hardened exterior, a very tough guy. And, that was, like, the first time you just see him, like, almost break down. So I really like that, that moment there. Great acting.
I move that this House demands the immediate resignation of the High Command upon the grounds that they be no longer competent to command the armed forces of this Parliament. I move that Colonel Cromwell be appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Army.
Yeah, you definitely see Cromwell's stock rising, right? Especially at that point. Gaining more power, definitely. That's a really cool aspect. Like I said, Cromwell, I think, is definitely the most interesting guy of this time period because of, like, there's just so much to talk about him. So much to see from, his more humble origin to what he becomes later. Like, I don't know, he's just a fascinating guy to learn about. And I think this movie's doing a really good job of, like, portraying it,
An Irish army of 20,000 men, even 15,000, would forestall such a threat and bring this wretched war to a speedy end.
I am instructed to say that His Holiness would permit an Irish force to take up arms in this country. But there are certain conditions. First, the Catholic Church in Ireland must be completely restored and permitted to practice freely without interference or oppression. Secondly, all Protestant churches in Ireland must be closed and all Protestant bishops and ministers removed from office.
Dang. Yep. Again, all this, this religious conflict, because, like, this is, like, the two are really kind of, like, linked together, Yeah, on one hand, it's like, yeah, Charles needs the manpower to win the war, but on the other hand, as we've seen, many of the English, people are not happy with Ireland, and their Catholicism. So it's like this weird, like, meshing, I guess you can say, where it's like that the lines are kind of becoming all blurred all over the place as Charles is just descending into, like, trying to hold it all together and win. I don't know.
Your Majesty, His Highness Prince Rupert attends in the council chamber.
Rupert? Here in Oxford?
Yes, my lord. I fear Bristol has fallen.
Dang.
Do not rise, sir, when your king approaches. Rise, sir, or to your knees in shame. You did give me your most solemn promise that you would hold Bristol for 4 months. Yet you have not held it for 4 weeks. You promise mountains, yet you perform molehills.
Men of foot weary from battle, ailing with plague and sickness.
Yet you contrived to escape with your life.
I have brought you an army, my lord.
In exchange for all the corn and stores you held in Bristol, and 200 cannon. That was the price of your freedom, sir.
Dang. And you're just seeing everything start to fall apart. Like, as Cromwell rises, definitely, you see the fall of Charles. Which is just an interesting up and down relationship, And just the royalists are just falling apart. Dang, man. This war was really crazy.
In God's name, allow that I may die with honor. Do not put upon these shoulders the terrible shame of exile and dishonor. I beg you, take my life, most noble lord. Good uncle, for pity's sake.
His Highness is to be kept under close guard until such time as he is deported.
Wow.
Very well, Your Majesty.
Yeah. Again, Rupert definitely. When learning about the war, Rupert I still think was like the best, general of Charles. Unfortunately, there were points where Rupert had to overcome insurmountable odds, and he couldn't, and Charles was specifically very harsh on him, which is, I think, at times unfair. And, again, like removing Rupert, not a good idea, because I still, he really was, like I said, the best of Charles's guys, so, definitely a shot in the foot there,
And I pray that with God's help, you will reign more happily than I have done.
Man, I don't know, like I said, it's probably just Alec Guinness, but he's so likable that it's almost like you feel bad for Charles, like, oh, poor, which is funny, because like I said, like, I think that a lot of the reason why this happened in the first place was really because of Charles's obstinance, his stubbornness, and his unwillingness to compromise with Parliament, so it's like, I don't know, like, I think he's a huge part of why this is. In fact, you could just straight up blame him for everything, but it is kind of interesting to just see this now, and, I don't know, I was like, well, I feel bad for him in some sense. I think it's just the actor.
I love you.
It is my most solemn duty to place you under arrest.
By whose command, sir?
By the command of Parliament, sir.
I know of no authority in England above that of the king.
It is upon that issue that this war was fought. If Parliament has decided the army will disband, then the army will disband.
I say we take the army and march on Parliament.
The sword will not rule this land. We fought a war to institute a parliamentary system and overthrow the very tyranny which you now propose.
Dang. So again, like, there's definitely this that, like, I like that aspect of, like, Cromwell. There's kind of like this, like, he draws lines in the sand for himself. Like, I would never go to the war with the king. That would be like, like, not good to do. And then he does that, and then now it's like, oh, I won't use the army. I will listen to the word of Parliament. And just knowing what he does in real life and amasses more power, and again, like, he's drawing these lines in the sand for himself, but stepping over them at the same time, which is another interesting, like, facet of you're kind of seeing this, like, again, if you know how it all ends, it's kind of funny when he makes these statements, but I don't know. I also really like that aspect of the movie that they're kind of showing.
Did this nation win a bloody civil war in order that the king should dictate the terms of peace?
I have already discussed the matter at great length with His Majesty.
You have discussed it. It is a matter for this house to discuss.
The king will not come to terms, sir, until the army stand down.
And the army will not stand down until the king comes to terms. Between the army! I believe, my Lord Manchester, that now I have the majority.
This is dictatorship. It'll mean
Again, like I said, Cromwell's legacy is definitely a very interesting one. Is that, people say he was a hero who fell into villainy, or he was always a villain, or, some would say he was always on the right. Again, like, he seems to warrant a lot of discussion, I think. And, you can definitely see how throughout the movie, definitely his his, like, again, as I call them, his lines in the sand, or things he's willing to cross. At times you could say justified, and other times you're like, like, I'm wondering, like, how much more further are you willing to step, whatever lines you draw for yourself, to pass, and how far will you go with your, it's justified. And you could say, that this was a situation like, which was really interesting, kind of seizing power essentially through military might, in a sense. Um, Again, like, um, I definitely don't feel like I have a stand so much. Like, I'm not like, nor am I telling anyone how they should think or feel, because I'm sure people have different opinions about Cromwell. If you think he's a hero, then, you think he's a hero. If you think he's a villain, then, you think he's a villain. I'm not, um, I'm a bit iffy. Like, there's a lot of thoughts and feelings I have, or it's like, like, I don't feel like I have a positive stance of where I stand with the guy, but I do find him interesting, and it's something I probably have to meditate more upon in what I think. But there are times I was like, definitely, especially later on. I think what he did in Ireland and, you know, stuff wasn't good at all. And I think you could point at that, say he's a bad person. Yeah, I could definitely agree in that respect. Especially that was a really bad one. To put it lightly.
If your majesty would be so kind as to study these proposals.
Has Parliament approved this treaty?
Parliament no longer truly represents the people of this nation, Sir Edward.
And you, Mr. Cromwell, do you truly represent the people of this nation?
I represent...
Definitely, you're starting to see the lines being blurred, right? Again, it depends how you view Cromwell. If his gaining of power was justified, and, or if you think it wasn't justified, I guess you'll have your opinion. But definitely, I think the movie's starting to show, like, yeah, are you? Like, I think it wants you to question if what he's doing is right, because he's basically like, I know what's best. I'm the true hero and representative of the people. I feel like that moment of, like, the king questioning that is kind of like, are you, or are you just like, deluding yourself more into it? I think it's kind of meant to make you think, like, is he really? I mean, granted, you're obviously seeing, like Parliament before he took control, under the Lord, was definitely trying to solidify something with the king, and probably more in favor of the king. And, depending on how you feel about that, it's like, yeah, he was more than justified in taking power. Or, you're thinking like, I don't know. I think it's meant to make you think, for sure. Your opinions will be from then on your own, but I don't know. I think that's fascinating and a great question. It's like, again, like, how far are you willing to go, Cromwell? How much power are you willing to seize in the name of what you think is for the people? So I really like that. It warrants discussion. He's a figure that I think warrants a lot of great discussion. And no doubt there will be opinions, for sure, about him.
I am deeply convinced, my lord, it be the duty of Parliament to frame a constitutional government, and not the army.
Then I do not see that you have any need of me at all.
On the contrary, sir. An England without a king is unthinkable. But withal, a king that can command respect. A monarch who governs not from fear, but by the affection of a free people. Such a king could reunite this great nation of ours.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Has the king considered our terms?
The king, sir, has not even read your terms. Nor would I venture has he any intention of so doing. He has this day drawn up a secret treaty with Manchester and Essex to raise a Scottish army against the parliamentary forces. He has already consented to a Catholic army from Ireland.
Yeah. So this is where you see, like, oh, yeah, um, again, like, I do remember that from the War series. Charles, again, very stubborn guy. Even in defeat, he refused to, like, give up. So, raising the Scottish army and whatnot is, and since the, Scotland and Ireland kind of start to be more pro-royalist and, like, against Parliament was an interesting development. And, you know, and I had believed that, Scotland and Parliament were allies earlier on against the king, but Parliament made, like, agreements with Scotland that they didn't actually ever intend on it fully, you know, capitalizing on, so... Yeah, you're starting to see that, and again, Charles, man, just the guy don't give up. But then this is where you see, like, Cromwell is like, oh, yeah, the king can't be reasoned with, and now he's getting the Irish involved, Catholics. You could imagine this is where he's like, that's his breaking point, right? Um, yeah, he's as good as dead, I suppose now, huh?
I will have this king's head.
I demand, therefore, in the name of the army and in the name of the people of this nation, that Charles I, King of England, be brought hence to stand trial for his life on a charge of treason.
Now we get to the trial, which I love the trial of Charles because it's so insane. Like, the guy was acted like a total brat the entire time. Like, I don't know. He actually started just trolling Parliament, which again, I would recommend watch Historia Civilis's Can Monarchs Commit Crimes or and the Trial of King Charles the First. It is hilarious. Charles was quite the brat and quite the troll to Parliament in his own trial. So it was actually it's one of my favorite videos for sure. It's really funny.
Charles Stuart, King of England, you stand before this court charged with high treason.
Again, I don't want to understate the effects that this event would have, right? Like, putting your king on trial definitely just seems like such a wild thing to do, especially back then, where monarchs and kings were definitely more powerful and whatnot, and most of the world operated on monarchies. Not to say there aren't monarchies still, but you know what I mean. So just the thought of, we're just gonna not only put our king on trial, but kill him, just like must have been wild. You know what I mean? It's just a moment. Definitely not something to understate,
And by what authority you presume to sit in judgment on me? Remember, I am your lawful king. Think well upon it.
And that was the big point that Charles tackled the entire affair with. By what authority? I am the king, I'm tied to the land, I'm tied to the government, and in some senses tied to the people, so I don't think they had a full good answer for it, that question that he just kept popping up, by what authority, which was a really interesting way Charles tackled this whole debacle.
It is not for the prisoner to question the court.
I am no ordinary prisoner, sir.
Hard line.
Answer, sir. Sir, this court requires to know if you have anything to say before judgment is passed upon you.
I have nothing to say to you.
The king is not England, and England is not the king. It is not the survival of the king that is at issue here. It is the survival of England.
Yeah, you're definitely seeing Cromwell finally, definitely, he's past the point of no return in terms of Charles. At first he was like, well, we could use a king still, it would be weird for England not to have a king. And now it's like, nah, he definitely is on the board of, he's on that radical movement of let's get rid of this guy now, you know? So, yeah, like I said, Cromwell's this development is just so fascinating, you know? And just seeing what becomes and how he just rises to this point of, like, you know, in his bid for power, I don't know. You know, as he rises in prominence and power, I really like this. This movie's really great. Like, I've been here for a few hours just watching it, but I'm really enjoying it. Like, I'm not, how do you say, I'm not feeling exhausted. Um, like, sometimes when I watch really long videos, I, like, start to, like, tire out. I actually feel very energized to keep going. I think that's just very engaged. That's how engaged I am with, this.
Here is a warrant demanding the death of the king upon the charge of high treason against this nation. Wire all your signatures. Sir Thompson.
Dang, man. Yeah, so this is supposed to be Fairfax, I believe. I haven't talked about him, but you're kind of seeing Cromwell's pushing the extreme. Now he just, like, straight up, let's kill the king, you know? And then just, like, he's definitely taking the radical side, right? And then, you know, like, Fairfax is trying to represent the more, let's have a cooler head about this, but, yeah.
I will not sign this warrant.
But he will. And they all will.
It is the sentence of this court that you be taken hence to an appointed place and put to death by the severing of the head from the body.
Oh my goodness.
That is the sentence of the whole court.
Wow. What an insane moment, right? This era is just so interesting. Yeah, I think, like the 17th century is right, that's okay, it's always one ahead. But yeah, so the 17th century is such a fascinating era that doesn't get much coverage in media. So I'm really happy to have watched this, be watching this, and watched out the movie Alatriste. Like I said, a very underrated era in history. I feel like it doesn't get much coverage. I feel like no one really talks about it much.
Her Royal Highness the Princess Elizabeth and His Royal Highness Prince Henry.
Elizabeth Street, child. Not grieve for me, Henry.
Again, I find it so weird, just like, yeah, definitely, I feel so bad for Charles. You know what I mean? Like, it is so interesting. It's, like, hard to dislike him. Like I said, I don't think he was that a good king. I would say he was a bad king, you know, for a lot of his traits and stuff that he did. But again, it's just hard not to feel bad for him. I don't know why. Like, I'm not sure if I'm alone on that, but it is like, I don't know.
Tell your mother that my love for her was the same to the last. And remember me. Your prayers.
So dignified. Like, man, what a brave way to face that. If I wouldn't, I would not be this dignified. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'd freak the heck out. Gosh, just the thought of facing execution and death is just, yeah, I can't pretend that I'd be made of tougher stuff, right? Oh, what a grims. Oh, heck no. Oh, that side, like, that's terrifying. I'm not even the one there. I'm like, oh god. Yeah, what an insane thing to have witnessed.
I will not delay you long, but will say only this to you. As God is my witness, I have forgiven those that have brought me here, and pray that my death be not laid to their charge. For I do endeavor, even to the last, to maintain the peace of my kingdom. I go now from a corruptible to an incorruptible crown, to everlasting peace.
Dang, dude. Like I said, what a way to go. Like, even though, like, yeah, he's being executed, he's definitely, like, you know, facing it with so much dignity and bravery, which I really like. And it's just really, like, yeah, man, what a way to just, you know, face it. Brave, definitely in its own right, right? I had heard, like, yeah, the real Charles in history did face his death very, in a very dignified manner too, so yeah, again, you have to give that to him. Definitely was brave in his final moments, right? Isn't that like a saying, like, you see a real person at their final moments? Or that's when you see the real person?
Permit me, sir, that I may pray a while before the blow is struck. Then when I put out my hand so, that will be the sign.
He's literally dictating his own death. He's like, let me do this. Like, how baller is that? That's actually kind of baller. Like, let me do what I need to before I go. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's no, like, joy, right? Which I find interesting. It's kind of like, everyone's kind of like, very quiet and shocked.
We did not assassinate. Nor was this thing done in a corner. It was done in the face of God and of all men. The office of king is now abolished. Long live Parliament. Long live the Republic.
I want to go back to Cambridge. Will you come with me, son? It'll be peace and quiet there now.
It is a solemn business that brings us here, Oliver. The country needs a head of state, Oliver. It must be governed.
Is it not governed by Parliament?
There must be a figurehead. It is our tradition. The country needs a king, Oliver. God knows you said
His reaction. That's it is hilarious that after the king is killed, and, you know, the idea of the Republic and Parliament being the controlling force, Parliament literally craps the bed. They fall apart. They are unable to govern. And then they need to eventually bring the king back. It's like, so the monarchy just came back on its own because Parliament never had a long-term plan once they won the war. They couldn't do it. So that, I don't know, that's just it's like so funny, like, in that sense. And also, like, man, you know, I mean, granted, there were changes, obviously, things, and as we know, Parliament only became more powerful and influential as time has gone by, but still, it is, like, kind of like, man, you know, so much happened only for the monarchy to just be back, you know? It is kind of, it's funny, but also, I guess, just, I don't know.
we are here on behalf of Parliament to offer you the crown.
Oh my gosh.
Court jester as some strolling player, that he may play your king, but not I. You are no more capable of conducting the affairs of this nation than you are of running a brothel. You are
My goodness.
You are scum, sir. And a truly elected scum at that. This is no parliament. I shall put an end to your sitting. I hereby declare this parliament dissolved. Harrison!
Yes, sir. Move forward.
Yeah, there's definitely points later on where people kind of look at, like, Cromwell's later actions, and you know, definitely that, I think that's where a lot of his where people who argue for him being, like, a villain definitely stem from. you look at what he did in Ireland, and yeah, that's you can't defend that, but some would call it genocide. The amount of death and destruction he brought there, and then there's this action of, disbanding Parliament, which some have said it was hypocritical, and there's also him trying to like make his office like hereditary, or like trying to give it to his son, which is some people are like, huh, that's very king-like, so definitely. Um, I guess this is one of the big moments, right? I mean, I think it depends how you view it, whether he was justified in doing it or whether he was no better than Charles in disbanding Parliament just cause, I don't know. Like I said, I guess it's just a matter of opinion at that point, but man.
I seem to recall that we cut off a king's head for such as this.
It is the likes of you who have turned my hand to this, but this nation will be justly governed.
And again, there's that running theme. Whenever things go bad, he takes power and he says it's justified for the people. And there are moments you could say, yeah, you can understand where Cromwell's coming from, maybe even justify it, be like, yeah, he was justified. And there are other times I think you could look at it and be like, what makes you the one to, decide this is fair, just to take the power and use the military and this, for what makes you so justified and the authority to just do that when you deem it so right, I don't know. I should probably ask, like, well, how do you guys view Cromwell, and what's your opinion, like, of the man? I feel like I'm interested in finding out what people think, um, and kind of trying to get a clue on how he's viewed. For anyone who decides to watch this video, and whoever stumbles here, feel free to let me know. How do you view Cromwell and his actions? Justified, hero, villain, both? Let me know.
Oliver Cromwell ruled the nation as Lord Protector for 5 years. In that short time, he raised England to be a great power, feared and respected throughout the world. Under his hand were laid the foundations of a truly democratic nation. In 1658, he died. 3 years later, Charles, Prince of Wales, was crowned king, and the monarch sat once more upon the throne of England.
Mm-hmm.
But an England never to be the same again.
And things were changed. So, that was Cromwell. And, overall, I really like that movie. I don't feel tired like I usually do when we watch movies. Honestly, I haven't enjoyed anything in the past, but I was really engaged, super, and, I feel more energetic now watching that than I did going into it. So, again, that was a great film. I think everything, I love the battle scenes. I love the acting. Alec Guinness, Richard Harris knocked it out of the park, playing both their parts to, I think, the best you could. And everything, like the sets, the costumes, the era, and again, Cromwell is such a fascinating figure who can inspire so much discussion around. And overall, I really love that film, and I think it was a great historical film to watch, and I'm very happy to, let's see it, especially after, covering the Civil War by kings and generals and stuff like that. So I'm gonna end the video right here because I have some editing and work to do to get this on YouTube now. But overall, a great video, guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.